Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of The Package Tourist, hosted by yours truly, The Package Tourist, and the magical mystery tour called life, Matthew DiBiase. Tonight, we have a special guest, pro football historian and author Terence T.J. Troup. TJ is one of the foremost historians of professional football. He has written numerous articles for American Football Coaches Monthly and was the football coordinator consultant for the 2008 George Clooney film Leatherheads, and also the 2021 film 12 Mighty Orphans. He wrote his first book in 2009 titled This Day in Football. In 2014, he wrote The Birth of Football's Modern 4-3 Defense, and recently, Coach Troup released 1961, a sensational season where he examined the offenses, defenses, kicking teams, and stats in significant games for all 14 NFL teams and the Houston Oilers and the San Diego Chargers in the AFL. Tonight, we will be discussing the 1965 NFL Championship game featuring the Green Bay Packers and the Cleveland Browns. Coach, welcome back to the show. It's always a great honor and privilege to have you on. I'd like to start off by asking you, Coach, do you consider the 1965 NFL Championship game to be one of the most underrated and under-chronicled playoff matchups in NFL history?
Absolutely, Matthew. It's great to be with you. If it's okay, and I'm not going to read the whole story, Sports Illustrated is January of '66, and Tex Mall writes a story, and the title is A Cool Masterpiece. And he starts it with, the Packers won the Pro Championship, a triumph meticulously executed by experienced players who wanted to prove something to themselves, Cleveland, and the Green Bay management. And it says, playing through their hometown snow, sleet, and slush like a herd of happy polar bears, the strangely wonderful Green Bay Packers righted a year of perverse fortunes and unexpected woes last Sunday by winning the championship from the Browns 23-12. And just that paragraph alone will set the stage for me, as I have a couple of nuggets to share about what the Packers overcame during that season.
You got it. Let's discuss the coaching matchups for that game. Vince Lombardi, the immortal Vince Lombardi, leading the Green Bay Packers, and the late Blanton Collier, who led the Cleveland Browns, who, in my opinion, deserves to be inducted into Pro Football Hall of Fame. Coach, I want to ask you this. Would you consider those two men the two greatest NFL coaches of their time when it came to offensive line play and ground game development and planning?
Absolutely. They are 1 and 1A. In doing background check, and I'll be brief on this, Blanton Collier left the Browns after the 53 season to become the head coach at Kentucky. So in 54, he is not with the Browns any longer, and that's the first year Vince Lombardi is the offensive coordinator for the New York Football Giants. So during all those great matchups between Cleveland and New York from 54 to 58, they did not face each other. So this, in essence, is the time that counts the most for these two men to have their teams go after each other.
Wow. And I just want to add, when I was doing statistical research for my own book, Lords of the Gridiron 2, Pro Football's Greatest Coaches, those two teams were always were in the top two in terms of leading the NFL and rushing yardage, throughout the whole decade. I mean, it's incredible. The two most potent ground attacks in the NFL for the 1960s.
Yes, sir. And of course, the Browns are going to be led by, in my opinion, the greatest running back ever. And Green Bay, though they're aging, and we'll sure discuss it tonight, Horning and Taylor, but also just the strategy and how Green Bay attacks a defense with their running game, the blocking. And no doubt, Matthew, we're going to cover that.
Let's do some comparison and contrast. Coach, when you look at the game films for both teams, what type of running plays are both teams running? I mean, we know about the power sweep for Green Bay, but can you just give a basic sketch of the running game repertoires for both teams?
Well, let's go with the defending champions first.
Okay.
Cleveland has made some subtle adjustments, especially because Dick Shafrath, the very, very mobile left offensive tackle, can actually pull and lead a play much like Roosevelt Brown used to for New York. And they have aligned Ernie Green, who's an excellent blocker, as a wing right off on the outside of Shafrath, and he blocks down. This has a single back offense, and they would toss the ball, and Mr. Brown does single back sweeps to that side, which still allows he can go the other way and do strong side sweeps. Green Bay does not use this wing alignment. They are traditional in how they run the sweep. So it's similar in where we're going with the ball. It's just different in who is going to block who. Both teams will run the trap inside. Both teams will run the counter. But it's a lot of it has to do with, okay, what is the defense aligned in? How big are our line splits? And then who is assigned to who to block? And, of course, we have two premier offensive lines for both these teams.
Okay. The thing is, isn't it accurate that both teams were using option blocking? Because I remember Jim Brown when he said when Collier took over from Paul Brown, he said what Collier did was give him options. In other words, the holes were not predetermined. He said he gave him the option simply find daylight, run to daylight, and just explore it that way. Is that the same thing?
It's very similar. When Lombardi was the offensive coach of the Giants, they are struggling in 1955. He sits down with the offensive line coach, and that's when run to daylight was designed. Now, they didn't use that terminology, but that's what it was. And it was, in essence, as you so well stated, it's option blocking. When Brown is under Paul Brown, you run to the hole. There's no deviation. But under Blanton Collier, he sees merit in doing this. And with someone with the balance and the power, and especially how smart Jim Brown is, if the hole is not exactly where it's drawn up, what would fault the man from shifting 2 steps to his left and then driving through the hole? So, yes, both teams, there's so many similarities. It's just subtly different in how the plays are blocked.
How would you rate Ernie Green as a run and pass blocker, Coach?
He's tall and lean, but he's very strong. He has excellent technique, and he's a willing blocker. And if you asked Ernie Green, and he's a very humble man, he would tell you, well, the reason I'm on the Cleveland Browns right now is to create space for Jim Brown to run. Now, when he carried the ball, he was a fine runner, though his stats are never going to be eye-popping. And when they threw him the ball, he was an adequate receiver. But he had, as I said, excellent technique, a very willing blocker, and could deliver a blow.
Okay.
And Paul Hornung, though, and we will discuss this, is still the master at running the weak side or fullback slant, where he blocks the outside linebacker. And Paul Hornung was a superb lead blocker for Jim Taylor.
Absolutely, yeah. Now let's talk about the rest of the Cleveland Browns offensive backfield. How would you rate Frank Ryan as a passer? What type of a season he had in '65?
Well, in essence, it is his third consecutive superb year. If you watch him throw the ball, and he has weapons to throw to, they sure got some guys who can catch it. Even though he's very tall, he does not throw up over the top. He throws 3/4 arm, and at times he's almost slinging the ball. But he's got great touch on his deep ball. He can take something off, and he also, when he has to, he has a pass with velocity on it. He is excellent in all facets. And, of course, this is Dr. Frank Ryan.
Yeah.
We're talking about a man who's incredibly intelligent. And keep in mind that when Lombardi is the head coach of the Redskins in 1969, Frank Ryan is the backup to Sonny Jurgensen.
That's right.
What does that tell you?
Yeah, yeah. In fact, I forget the title of his doctoral dissertation. It's almost indecipherable, but he was a fan. So those who don't know, he literally earned a PhD in mathematics. I mean, his mathematics are way beyond our mathematics in high school. Let me tell you that. Okay. Okay, let's talk about the Browns receivers. Gary Collins, Paul Warfield, and tight end Johnny Brewer. Evaluate them and also tell us which Packers, who in the Packers secondary would be covering Collins, Warfield, and Brewer in the game.
Well, let's go with a pro-right formation. And, of course, Cleveland uses both. But Gary Collins, flanker to the right, is tall, has better than average speed. He runs excellent routes. He has excellent hands. But he is a master at setting up cornerbacks for setting up one route to run another. And with his height, it is a decided advantage. And, of course, when you have a championship game like he did in 64, he is a threat.
Yeah.
Johnny Brewer is not thrown to a lot. He's basically there to block, but when he is throwing the ball, he can catch the ball. Oh, I should go back. If Collins is flanked to the right, he is going to be covered by first-team All-Pro and future Hall of Famer Herb Adderley.
Wow.
A tremendous matchup.
Yeah.
Now, the new strong safety for Green Bay, who couldn't hit well enough to stay on the Washington Senators baseball team, though he had been drafted by the Packers, is Tom Brown. And Tom Brown is an upgrade over Hank Reminger due to Hank Reminger's advancing age. Tom Brown is excellent against the run. He's a fine pass defender. He's not the biggest guy, but he's a quality, strong safety.
Yep.
On the other side, just a very quick note here. When I played in college, I wore jersey number 42 as a defensive back. There's a reason for that. That was Paul Warfield's jersey number.
Wow.
Paul Warfield is the epitome of everything you'd want in a wide receiver. Quality, routes, excellent. I mean, he is the complete package. And this man was a running back at Ohio State.
Yeah.
But he's learned his lessons well. He's fine on anything underneath. But when you watch footage of him with the Dolphins later running a slant route, no one ever ran it better than he did. But he also can get deep. And he can run by any corner. Now, the right corner for Green Bay, and even though he had a strong year in 65, is Doug Hart. This is one of the keys to the game. Doug Hart supposedly hurt his foot early in the game and is replaced by Bob Jeter. Jeter is faster than Hart, and for basically a raw rookie, though he's a very talented athlete, Bob Jeter has a magnificent championship game and did not back down from Warfield at all.
Wow. Another thing about Paul Warfield that made him such a great receiver is that in addition to being a great pass catcher and being able to run with the ball, he was also a fantastic blocker when taking out a linebacker on running plays.
Yes, and again, I'll interject a real quick story. When I was the receivers coach at Orange Coast Community College, I had Marlon Briscoe come down. We became friends through Steve Sable. I had Marlon Briscoe come to practice, and he was not a very big man. And we talked about wide receivers blocking. And I turned in front of my receivers and asked Marlon, I said, so tell me what it was like on the practice field for you and Paul Warfield when it came to blocking. And he very succinctly said, if you didn't block in Shula's offense, you watched.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's talk about the Browns' offensive line matching up against the Packers' defense. Let's talk about Dick Shafrath versus Lionel Aldridge.
Well, Shafrath is injured and does not play, but maybe a couple plays. I did not see him on film. Now, he's listed as playing. John Brown has experience. He's a quality backup, and he starts at left offensive tackle against Aldridge. For a backup, he's rock solid. He's just not a first-team All-Pro like Shafrath, and John Brown cannot do, like I say, the offensive tackle pull.
Okay, John Wooten versus Henry Jordan, Hall of Famer Henry Jordan.
Wooten is a superb blocker, but he is facing, and of course, it's fascinating, Henry Jordan was a Cleveland Brown.
Yeah.
Henry Jordan has every technique, and he is lightning quick. Strength-wise, he was a champion wrestler, so he knows how to use his hands. Wooten has, as good as he has his hands full against a future Hall of Famer.
Okay. Center John Morrow versus Ray Nitschke.
Well, no one consistently is going to win a battle against Mr. Nitschke. and this is probably at Ray's peak. 65 and 66 are his two peak years.
Yeah.
And we will discuss it, I'm sure, later in the show, how good of a pass defender Nitschke is. Morrow's a fine center, but he sure has his hands full.
Okay. Let the immortal Gene Hickerson versus Ron Kostelnik.
Well, you would think that Kostelnik is overmatched, but he actually reads running plays. He actually beats Hickerson on a play where Hickerson pulls to the left. But Hickerson is a outstanding trap blocker, fine pass protector, very mobile. So that matchup should favor Cleveland, but Kostelnik holds his own in the game.
Was Kostelnik a very good run-contained defensive tackle?
Yes, you don't see him get many sacks, but he knows that now that he's replaced Hog Hanner, and he's so well coached, I'm a Green Bay Packer. I have to, he's playing side by side with Willie Davis, and behind him is Ray Nitschke. So it's not like he's alone. He just knows he's got to control his gap.
Okay. Finally, Monty Clark versus Willie Davis.
Monty Clark is an excellent pass protector, and one of his strengths as a blocker, he has good feet, is he can cut block. But he is facing, again, a fantastic future Hall of Famer. I mean, as good as the Cleveland Browns offensive line is, and they are all fine men, look at who they are facing. And this is Willie Davis now is battles Deacon Jones for who is the best left defensive end in the NFL.
Okay. Was Davis Green Bay's leading sack master?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and very consistent. Though the sack information compiled by Turney and Webster is not complete, if you really dig down deep, Willie Davis had more sacks than he's given credit to. We're just never going to know the exact totals. Outstanding pass rusher due to quickness, excellent technique, and he is relentless.
Okay. Now let's talk about Cleveland's kicking teams. Lou Groza as place kicker and Gary Collins as punter.
Well, Lou the Toe, of course, when your nickname is the Toe, that might mean you're pretty good.
Oh, yeah.
He's been around a while, like forever. And though he's winding down in his career, he still is a rock-solid kicker. He may not be what he once was, but he's still rock-solid. And Collins had some years where his punting average is not all that good. But in 1965, if I remember correctly, he's in the top handful of punters, and he boomed the ball that year.
Okay. I just want to add for our listeners, at this stage of his career, by 65, Lou Groza was no longer a two-position player. In the 40s and 50s, he was both an offensive lineman and a place kicker. By this stage, he's strictly place kicking and all of that. Okay, let's talk about Cleveland's kick and punt returners, Leroy Kelly and Flea Roberts.
Well, Flea Roberts, when they list him at 5'9", 161, they might have been giving him a couple of pounds. I mean, he literally is tiny, but he's fearless. He's actually a decent receiver when he has to play, and let's add to it, he is lightning quick. So he is a fine kick returner. And Leroy Kelly, I mean, this man, we know where he's headed to, but in 65, he's not going to replace Jim Brown in the backfield. But he led the league in punt returns and was just outstanding.
Yep. We now come to the Green Bay Packers. Let's talk about that magnificent offensive backfield of Bart Starr, Paul Hornig, and Jim Taylor. Let's start with Bart. By 1965, how much has Bart Starr improved his passing game at this stage of his career?
This man is so disciplined and so knowledgeable and consistently accurate and knows his limitations. This is his 10th year.
Yeah.
If he reads the coverage and knows where to go with the ball, that's where it goes. Now, that doesn't mean that every pass is on the mark. He overthrows Horning on a play, and Waller Beach makes a big-time interception for the Browns. So it's not that Bart Starr can't throw a bad pass, but he is money, and for a guy who's not credited with being able to throw the deep ball, he can get it out there when he has to.
One thing about Bart is by this stage of his career, he has really reduced his interception. So you talk about that interception to Walter Beach. That was a freak, basically a fluke when you talk about it, because the ratio of touchdown passes interception is grows with each year at this stage of Bart's career, correct?
Absolutely. He sets the record. It'll be during the next season in '66 when Jimmy Johnson of the Niners finally intercepts him. He would go long stretches without throwing an INT, when there's other quarterbacks that can't go 2 series without throwing the old errant pass to the opposition. No, Bart is very, very accurate.
We now come to the Golden Boy. Even though Paul Hornung gained in 1965 only 635 total yards, he still leads the Packers in TDs scored. Coach, in your opinion, what was the Golden Boy's secret for finding the end zone? Can you explain it to our audience?
I sure wish, Matthew, I sure wish I could. Recently, at the Pro Football Journal in my weekly column, I talked about 12-12-65, which I called the day of the halfback, where Horning scores 5 touchdowns against the Colts, and on the same afternoon, this young kid from Kansas scores 6 for the Chicago Bears.
Yeah.
And in that game against the Colts, it's almost like Horning reached back in time and found the magic. When they were inside the 20, that man just knew how to find the end zone.
Yeah.
And he will do it. He will have a touchdown in this game.
And it's an extremely vital touchdown, which we will discuss later. And the thing about Horning, what always impressed me, is that the bigger the game, the more greater his ability to come through when the moment was the big moment was needed. Correct, Coach?
Absolutely. And of course, let's add to that, as I mentioned, everybody wants to talk about the Lombardi sweep. And my gosh, John Madden once shared at a clinic that Lombardi talked for hours just on that one play.
Yeah. And
everybody's taking notes. But every offensive running play has what we call in the coaching industry a companion play. And for Green Bay, the companion play is Jim Taylor aligned behind Starr at fullback, Paul Horning, halfback left. He goes straight out of his stance and blocks the outside linebacker.
Yeah.
Well, you can draw it up on the board, but now we come to the physicality.
Yeah.
We've got some outside linebackers in the NFL. They don't want to be blocked, and they are usually bigger and stronger than running backs. Paul Horning was a master at cutting outside linebackers, and Jimmy Taylor, look at how many yards he gained. So the companion play is the fullback slant, and it's not that Jimmy Taylor can't run, but he is sure aided by Paul Horning's ability to block. And Paul Horning is an excellent receiver out of the backfield. And to add to that, though he doesn't do it much anymore, and he even throws one in this game, he still can throw the option pass.
You got it. Now, is Jim Taylor still the fulcrum of the Packers' ground attack? Is he still the main man, gets most of the carries? He's
fighting injury, but yes, he carries the ball over 200 times. But when you look at his yards per carry at 3.4 for the season, we're giving him the ball. He just is not being able to break. He is not able to make the 3-yard run into the 8-yard run near as often.
Okay. Now let's talk about the Green Bay Packers receiving corps. Let's talk about Carroll Dale, Boyd Dowler, Max McGee, and Marv Fleming. When you talk about these men, who in the Cleveland Browns secondary would be covering these 4 men?
Well, let's go again. Now, they're both going to be split in. They're both going to be flanker, and they're both going to be aligned to both sides depending on the formation and the call by Bart Starr. But in this case, we'll go tight end right.
Okay.
And Marv Fleming does not play a lot of tight end. The Green Bay's starting tight end in the championship game and he was a split end with the Redskins once upon a time, is Bill Anderson. And Bill is a fine blocker and an excellent receiver. Now, he doesn't do much in this game, but it's not because he can't. Ron Kramer long ago had lost his skills and was dispatched to Detroit. But Bill Anderson does a fine job at tight end. But the key here is Max McGee is a quality backup, but he is aging. And he just doesn't have the speed anymore. So Green Bay makes a masterful trade and gets one of the most underrated receivers of his generation. Carroll Dale has speed, hands, and can run every route. So, and if he is split left, he will be covered by Walter Beach. On the right side is a man who is an all-decade receiver who gets no love from Hall of Fame voters. In other words, he is first-team all-decade receiver, meaning Boyd Dowler, and he never even gets a thought of being chosen for the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
Shame.
Excellent blocker, but with his height and his athleticism, and he can get deep. He had very good speed for a big man, and he can catch every ball. And the left corner for Cleveland is veteran, though his career is winding down, and we'll discuss it tonight, Bernie Parrish.
Ooh. Okay. Now let's talk about the Packers' offensive line matchups. Bob Skoronski versus Bill Glass. I
have, with help from my good friend Eric Goska, the tackle chart. When you look at the tackle chart, Skoronski's game is okay in the championship. Bill Glass must have at least 10 tackles, either assists or lead. Bill Glass had a fine game against Skoronski, but he doesn't dominate it as much as he just shed the block and pursued very well. And Bill Glass, at this point, is a Pro Bowl player.
Wow. Okay, Fuzzy Thurston versus Jim Kanicki.
Well, Kanicki had played so well in the championship game the year before against all-world Jim Parker. I think that the Browns' thought process was, well, my gosh, he's going against squat, aging. He's been injured off and on all year, Fuzzy Thurston. Kanicki will more than hold his own. Kanicki struggles the entire game and is replaced by young Walter Johnson during the game.
Wow.
Fuzzy reaches back, much like Paul Hornung, and finds that fountain of youth for this game, and he has just an outstanding game.
Ken Bowman versus Vince Costello.
When Bill Forrester is aging at right outside linebacker, again, Green Bay makes a masterful trade. And trades, we'll never know the real story, though it's always rumored about having an agent. Jim Ringo is sent to Philadelphia for Leroy Caffey. Okay, well, we got to replace Jim Ringo at center. Ken Bowman is bigger and is better at actually drive blocking forward. The challenge for him is, can he make the cutoff block as good as Ringo? And the answer, of course, is no, but he does a rock-solid job of blocking Vince Costello.
Okay. Hall of Famer Jerry Kramer versus Dick Modulewski, Big Mo.
Well, Mo, again, had made the Pro Bowl for the only time in his career the year before in '64, and he also is aging. So he's on the downside of his career, and even though he makes some tackles, Walter Johnson plays a little bit there for him in the game, and Jerry Kramer, and especially we'll talk about that sweep. When you watch Kramer on the 13-yard touchdown sweep by Hornung, and you watch how fast 248-pound Jerry Kramer is moving, and he's overcome injury during this year, which I'll discuss later in our show.
Yeah.
It's amazing that he is probably, and he's been building, and he was a rookie in '58.
Yeah.
And this is 1965, and he still has the speed to lead the sweep.
Hall of Famer Forrest Gregg versus Paul Wiggin.
Paul Wiggin is a very, very fine player, and he has all the tricks of the trade. But he is facing, without a doubt, other than Jim Parker, the most versatile offensive lineman in the NFL. more than once, Coach Lombardi has to move Forrest Gregg to the guard position. And though he's not as good at guard as he is at tackle, he is just fine there. But as a right offensive tackle, there is none better. And Vince says he's the best player he ever coached. I'd say that's pretty high praise.
That's incredible praise. It's fantastic praise when you think about it. Okay, let's talk about Green Bay's kicker and punter, who does both duties, Don Chandler.
Again, a masterful trade. What Green Bay lacks in the draft, it's the trades they pull off.
Yeah.
I mean, the Giants want to let Don Chandler go?
Yep.
Wow. Okay. Well, I'm not in charge of management for with the Giants because in 1965 I'm 14, so I wasn't consulted on the trade.
Yeah.
But I got to give props to Coach Lombardi again, and of course they were with each other in New York. Lombardi knows, and Horning had struggled so much in '64 in attempting field goals and had missed so many. He has to have an upgrade. Well, he sure got it.
Yeah, and in fact, in '63, that's another reason why the Packers didn't get to the championship game in '63. Again, weakness at the kicking position when you consider that. Let's talk about Green Bay's kick and punt returners, Herb Adderley, Elijah Pitts, Willie Wood, and Tom Moore.
They're all fine, and they all have their moments. Wood has had better years in the past with punt returns. None of it. Adderley has had his moments, but the return game, even though Green Bay is rock solid, it's not as good as Cleveland's.
Okay. We now come to the game itself. Now, Coach, when you're looking at the films of that 1965 championship game, let's talk. What was Cleveland's offensive game plan? What sectors, when they were running plays, what side of the Green Bay Packers defense were they attacking? And also, where was Frank Ryan targeting his passing game? What was the Cleveland Browns offensive game plan as you're seeing it?
Completely balanced. We are going to run left. We are going to run right. We are going to throw to both sides. There is nothing that stands out where the Browns are going to attack, and you're attacking the Green Bay Packers. So, where do you go? There are all pros and Pro Bowl players ever. If there was one area to go the most, I would think Frank Ryan, even though Gary Collins is excellent, is looking at the matchup of Paul Warfield against Doug Hart, and then also running Jim Brown into the boundary because of that, how the hash marks were then. So Cleveland is looking to go left, though their touchdown is scored to the right.
Okay. Now let's talk about Cleveland's defensive game plan. When the Packers are on offense, how is Cleveland's defense trying to contain the Green Bay running game? How are they defending against Bart Starr's passing attack? And how is a Cleveland defensive coordinator Howard Brinker using his linebackers to stop Horning, Taylor, and what coverages are they using against Bart Starr's passing?
Cleveland will not change up much. Howard Brinker knows what he's doing. He should have been doing this a long time and successfully. They will run some zone. Yes, they will run some man. The issue in this game is how flawed the Cleveland secondary is in helping defend the run. This is not one of Galen Fisk's best games ever at right outside linebacker. Aging linebacker, he just doesn't make many plays, and unfortunately, watching on film, he missed plenty of tackles. Costello holds his own in the middle, but he is not known as a sideline-to-sideline middle linebacker. His job is to help in the middle, and he does okay at that. And on the other side, big, rangy Jim Houston is not attacked very often. So even though he makes some plays, it's not one of those aspects where Green Bay is going to run right at Jim Houston. And we'll discuss that in a little bit about how Green Bay adjusted their blocking and ran through holes differently. So they're not running the sweep all the way outside.
Okay.
So going back to your question, the Browns secondary, and I'm going to go there right now.
Yeah.
Even though Larry Benz makes some tackles, this is his third year as a starter. In the expansion draft, the Atlanta Falcons take him from Cleveland. Cleveland puts him up there. He is so poor in this game that the Browns put him on the expansion list. He does not make the Atlanta Falcons roster.
Ouch. Ouch. Ouch.
So I can't say 100% for sure, and it's not that he doesn't give an effort, but Larry Benz misses tackles. He makes his share, but they keep attacking, and he does. He's out of position. He doesn't have the great raw speed, and his partner back there in the secondary, Ross Fiedner, is an outstanding pass defender, and he's a willing run defender, but he also does not come up, and they do not come up and force and fill like many, many other defensive backs do in the league. And that is why Green Bay continues to just run the ball.
Okay. Let's go to the Green Bay defensive game plan. I know you always love to talk about the late Phil Bengtson. I know on many episodes you've waxed rhapsodic about him. How is Phil Bengtson using his linebackers to contain the Cleveland Browns ground game?
Thank you for that. Yes, I think Phil Bengtson deserves to be in the Hall of the Very Good at the Researchers Association for his fine work his entire career.
Yeah.
And I will actually cover that in the Pro Football Journal in a couple of weeks. His lengthy and outstanding career as a teacher and as coordinator. It was Lombardi's first hire. When the 49ers pass over Phil Bengtson and hire Red Hickey, talk about a flawed decision. Vince couldn't get on that phone quick enough, and I can just mimic Coach Lombardi. Phil, I want to hire you and bring you to Green Bay, Wisconsin. And that's based on the December 1st, 1957 game, where Lombardi, as offensive coach of the Giants, got destroyed by Bengtson's blitz-happy San Francisco 49er defense that day. Charlie Connery fumbled 5 times.
Wow.
In that game, they just attacked. So Bengtson is able to teach the blitz, or the terminology in that era, the red dog. But he also can teach his backers to play off the play and play to the outside. He is a master at teaching outside and inside linebackers. They are going to be, real quick, they are going to be cognizant of number 32. If Brown steps to the left, they know exactly where they need to go to fill every running lane.
Okay. Talk about how was Ray Nitschke basically, how was he covering Jim Brown? I mean, was he doing like what Sam Huff does, just focusing on Brown to the exclusion of everything else? Was it like that? Was he shadowing Jim Brown, Ray Nitschke?
I would say yes. The biggest aspect of Nitschke and how he has gone from, part-time starter, wild man, out of control, in the lineup, out of the lineup, to now, from 62 on, where he is just a superb linebacker. And for his size, he has excellent speed. And, of course, I know we're going to talk about the pass breakup he makes in the end zone.
Yeah.
And so when Jim Brown runs a circle route, there's number 66 running with him.
Yeah.
And, I mean, there are not many middle linebackers that can be assigned to Jim Brown on pass defense.
Let's talk about the Green Bay secondary and all that. What type of coverages were they using to stop Frank Ryan's passing? Were they using man? Were they using zone? What were they using?
I'm sure there are times they were in zone, but most of the time they are going to be in man coverage. And I'm going to go to it briefly. I learned this years ago. When Bengtson aligned the Packer pass defense, and you watch old film, and of course I have, you never see Willie Wood and Ray Nitschke together.
Wow.
They were split. If Nitschke goes to the right, Willie Wood goes to the left. And, of course, many times, being the right or free safety, Willie Wood will have man coverage on the back coming out of the backfield. But now, against Cleveland, Frank Ryan will have to read that, because if Jim Brown runs a circle route out of the backfield, towards the center of the field, and Nitschke takes him. That means Wood is on the other side, helping Herb Adderley take away Gary Collins' favorite route, which is the post.
Wow. Okay. Now we come to the Green Bay offensive game plan. When you're looking at the films, what sides of the Cleveland Browns defensive line are they attacking? And, because in this game, Paul Hornung and Jim Taylor combined for 201 yards rushing. What running plays were being used to gain those vital yards? What was working?
They will run to the right. Like, let's say they do call a play where, and they'll switch. There are many, many plays in this game where neither Hornung or Taylor is aligned the way they normally are. They are in modern football, split backs.
Ooh.
And they'll toss the ball to one and the other leads. But the way they designed their sweep, and in a moment here I'm going to interject a quick story.
Yeah.
When they designed their sweep, it was to cut back. It was not to go. They don't have the speed anymore. They cannot run all the way around to the outside. So they'll run, and as Vince says, we're going to get a seal here, and run the play in the alley. So when they saw daylight, they cut back, hoping to seal off Costello and take advantage of the Browns secondary that was not very good about coming up against the run.
Yeah.
So again, instead of 3-yard gains with a strong safety helping, they're 8-yard gains, they're 7-yard gains.
Yeah.
Paul Zimmerman, my departed good friend Dr. Z, was able to convince the New York Post to allow him, as a young writer, to go to the game. And after the game, he goes in the locker room and he sits down and starts discussing with Fuzzy Thurston the offensive line adjustments that Green Bay made in the game.
Wow.
And Thurston calls over Greg and Kramer, and they have their own little summit meeting there.
Wow.
And, of course, it's a turning point in Dr. Z's career to be praised by the Packer offensive line about this writer who understood the adjustments they made in their blocking assignments. And, of course, that was done at halftime. When they went in at halftime, Green Bay made a concerted effort. They're not stopping us. Bart, just continue to do what you're doing. And, of course, we'll talk about that when we go over some of the play-by-plays and some of the drives.
Okay, we now come to the Green Bay passing attack. Where and whom was Bart Starr targeting his passing attack? Who was his main target?
I don't think it mattered. I think there's such confidence in both Carroll Dale and Boyd Dowler that when he wants to throw, he's going there. But also, Taylor makes a key reception and makes a gain in there, and there's I don't know where Galen Fisk was. Taylor makes the catch and gains, I think, 10 yards, and he was wide open.
Yeah.
And, of course, Paul Hornung can still catch the ball. But on the handful of throws, I mean, you have the stats. Bart Starr doesn't throw that much in the game. But when he does, it's basically he's going to go to Dale and Dowler.
Okay. Now, Boyd Dowler caught 5 of Bart Starr's 10 completed passes. What routes was Dowler using to get open? Were there any? Was there one in particular that he was using, or was he using a wide variety of routes?
He used a wide variety, and they're all shorter, though he could go deep. I think the way the Browns were playing him, and especially Parrish, when Dowler's to the right, is he ran slants, hooks, stopped, end. In watching the film, and it's never mentioned by the announcers once, which I find amazing, there were many plays where when Carroll Dale is flanker right, so Bill Anderson is tight end right, and Carroll Dale is flanker to the right, Boyd Dowler was tight end left. And Green Bay had done this in the past, but they did it not a ton in the game, but enough where all of a sudden Galen Fisk is faced with a new dilemma.
Yeah.
And, of course, that allows when the guards pull, they can actually get outside.
Yeah.
So Boyd Dowler is creditable both as a blocking tight end on occasion and running these underneath routes, and he catches everything that comes to him.
That was the thing about Dowler. Even though he was a flanker, he was very big and husky, so therefore he could play tight end if necessary and all that. He was quite big for his size when you think about it. Okay, let's talk about the first quarter of the game itself. Please describe Bart Starr's 47-yard touchdown pass to Carroll Dale.
It's not one of his all-time great throws, We've got the weather conditions. The ball might have been a little muddy, but he rainbows the ball up in the air. And Carroll Dale has excellent speed. Carroll Dale makes an excellent adjustment and slows down and actually has to kind of come back for the ball, let it come to him. And what happens? Waller Beach slips, Fiedner slips, and Larry Benz is late getting over there. Dale makes the catch, starts maneuvering, touchdown Green Bay.
Yeah. I just want to explain to the audience, one of the big things about the 1965 NFL Championship game, whereas they talk about the 67 NFL Championship game as being the Ice Bowl, the 65 NFL Championship game played at Lambeau Field was the Mud and Snow Bowl. And when you see the pictures and the films of it, it was literally the ultimate mud bath on NFL history. It's incredible when you look at the photos. It's just... It symbolizes old NFL football at its utmost. Just make a note. Now Cleveland comes back with a 17-yard TD pass to Gary Collins, and then later on a 24-yard field goal by Luke Rosa. How did those two Cleveland scores come about, and what plays were working for Cleveland on those two drives?
It's 7-0 Green Bay.
Yeah.
And Cleveland gets the ball. And they come out and don't hand the ball to Jim Brown.
Ooh.
I mean, talk about a shock. 1st and 10 on the 34, and Jim Brown goes up the right sideline, and he's covered by Nitschke. Nitschke goes from middle linebacker all the way to the sideline, and Jim Brown makes an athletic over-the-shoulder catch for 30 yards.
Yep.
Then Ryan comes back on 2nd down and completes the ball to Warfield. And Hart is struggling. He's still in at this point, he's playing right corner, and he makes a catch for 19, and Willie Wood has to make the tackle. And then Collins runs a masterful route. We know he runs the post as well as anybody in the NFL. He fakes the post and runs a deep out and is wide open and beats Adderley for 17 yards. So they gain 66 yards in 3 passes against the number 1 pass defense in the NFL.
Wow. Okay. Now, how's the field goal come about?
Well, when it's time, Green Bay, Bill Glass sacks Starr.
Ooh.
So it's 4th and 22 on the Green Bay 8, and Chandler punts the ball only 31 yards.
Ouch.
So Leroy Kelly makes the fair catch on Green Bay's 39. 1st down, Jim Brown for 3. 2nd down, Ryan to Warfield for 11. 1st and 10, Jim Brown for 5. Now he's going to the right.
Okay.
And Willie Davis and Dave Robinson. Then Ryan has a hard time holding the ball. Looks like it's going to be a pass play, and he runs straight ahead, and he gains 3.
Yeah.
Ryan throws to Warfield in the end zone. Oh, it is close. But there's a little velocity on there, and Warfield reaches for it, but he can't get it.
Oh.
And so it's 4th and 2 on the 17, and Groza pumps it through.
Yeah.
So here's the defending champions. They've had the ball twice, and they've scored twice.
Wow.
Green Bay, you are in for a game.
Okay. We now come to the second quarter. Willie Wood makes a very big play that stops a Cleveland drive. Please, Coach, please tell our audience all about it.
Well, I'm going to go back to the very end of the first quarter, and that is because of what happens on the play, Green Bay drives forever. They start on their own 24, and they drive all the way into the second quarter, and Chandler kicks the field goal.
Ooh.
Then Cleveland is not able to move the ball, and they punt. Then Green Bay punts. And now we're going to the play you had mentioned. So we're halfway through the second quarter. Ryan throws on 1st down. So that's kind of telling you something here. They think they can throw the ball against the Packer defense. 4 throws for Warfield, but now Jeter is in the game, and he tips it away. On 2nd and 10, it's a little flip pass to Jim Brown. Willie Davis tackles Brown on a little pass play to the right. So it's 3rd and 10, and Ryan sees what he believes to open receiver, and Willie Wood flashes into the picture and makes this. And for 5'10", that man could jump. He leaps up, tips it with one hand. The ball comes down. He grabs it and he returns it to the Cleveland 10-yard line.
Wow.
So they are positioned. Yes.
Okay. Now, you talk about Don Chandler's first field goal. What about his second one?
Well, that's what's going to happen after the Wood interception.
Ooh,
Starr throws incomplete 3 straight times. Chandler pumps it right through. The ball's on the 15, kicks a 23-yard field goal.
So in a sense, that Willie Wood interception was like a 6-point play. It took, or a 10-point play. It took away a Cleveland touchdown, and it sets up a Green Bay field goal. When you think about it, right?
Yes, because at that point we know the Browns are going to. I mean, it's not that they're not going to run Jim Brown, but they are throwing the ball, and they believe that Collins and Warfield can do the job.
Okay. Now let's talk about the Lou Groza 28-yard field goal. Okay.
What happens is this is late in the half, and Starr overthrows Horning, and Walter Beach intercepts.
Ooh.
So the ball now is very, very deep in the territory. So Ryan is on the Green Bay 30. After Beach's, he doesn't return the ball. So Ryan throws incomplete. Then he's sacked by Dave Robinson, Little Phil Bankston, Red Dog. And then on 3rd and 15, Ryan throws again to Jim Brown. And coming up is Bob Jeter, and he makes a strong tackle. But the ball's on Green Bay's 21, and Lou Groza kicks the field goal. So it's 13-12. Basically right at the half.
Okay.
Anybody's ball game.
Okay. Now you talk about Jim Brown. He talked about it himself in his own memoirs. He was running a deep route. He was in the Green Bay end zone, and Nitschke was covering him. When did this take place? In the first half or the second half, Coach? That big play.
That's going to be in the second half.
Okay, we'll come up to that later. Okay.
Yeah, well, it's actually going to be on their first drive in the third quarter.
Oh, okay.
So shall we go to that right now?
Yeah, let's go to it right now. Okay, so did Cleveland get the ball at the very start of the second half? Okay, let's go. Take it away, Coach.
Yeah.
Take it away.
So Cleveland's got the ball on their own 31. Brown loses 2. Ernie Green gains 0. It's 3rd and 12, and that man, Frank Ryan, 17-yard completion to Gary Collins, first down. Then it's Ryan incomplete, and then Ryan is sacked for -8, and then Collins punts. But the one key in there where it says Ryan incomplete, intended for Jim Brown. So it's 2nd and 10 on the Cleveland 46, and Brown runs not a circle route over the middle. He goes deep. And Ryan lost the ball, and it is right on, considering the conditions that you mentioned earlier. The ball is right on the money, and it's coming down, and Jim Brown is catching it at his waist in the back part of the end zone. And Ray Nitschke, though he's a step behind, he does, of course, like any Hall of Famer, is not going to give up on the play. He reaches in with that big paw of his and rakes the ball out of Jim Brown's hands for the incomplete.
Yeah. And I know Brown later, I think in his book Out of Bounds, said he thought that was a turning point. He said that really took the steam out of the Browns' offense. Because they never really recovered from that. You could call that a key moment right there, don't you? You agree, Coach?
Oh, absolutely, Matthew. Think of the situation.
Yeah,
you're the defending champions. You're only down 13-12. Take the second half kickoff, and you throw it. They are taking the lead. 19-13 at that point.
Yeah.
And now Green Bay, now everything changes. Maybe Bart Starr has to throw more.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Could be a completely different situation. I'm sure, imagine the Cleveland Brown fans sitting at home in Ohio watching this game, and they see the ball lofted beautifully by Dr. Ryan, and it's right on the money, and they see the man, the myth, the legend, Jim Brown, who had good hands, making the catch, and all of a sudden the ball is laying in the mud in the end zone.
Yeah.
Because Nitschke just would not give up. So, yes, Absolutely agree with you. It's a great point you made, Matthew. This is, for me, the key defensive play by the Packer defense in the game.
Okay, now in the second half here, I want to state for the record, Cleveland's offense has held completely scoreless. What defensive adjustments did Phil Banksman make to shut down the Browns' offense in the second half? What are you seeing, Coach?
Well, I'm actually going to kind of go tongue-in-cheek here. This is going to, the best defense is for Jim Brown to never be on the field. So it's all about Green Bay's offense.
Yeah.
Green Bay starts with the ball after the punt, where Pitts struggles. They have 1st and 10 on their own 10. They drive 90 yards for the touchdown, and it goes in order. Horning, Taylor, Star to Dowler, Taylor, Star to Taylor, Horning, Taylor, and then shall we go to it now? The Horning.
Let's do it, because this is my favorite moment of the 1965 championship game. To see the film of it is incredible, because it shows the incredible genius of Vince Lombardi. In the third quarter, Paul Hornung scores the game-breaking touchdown via the power sweep. Now, Coach, please tell our audience how Vince Lombardi brilliantly altered Forrest Gregg's blocking scheme to make the play work. I mean, tell us how to do it, because when you see it on film, it's unbelievable. Tell the story, Coach.
Well, the key block is going to be made, of course, by Jerry Kramer on Larry Benz.
Yeah.
But Gregg pulls from right tackle and slides down to cut off all the pursuit. I mean, how many tackles can be asked to do that and then have the physical skills to do it? So you have 2 future Hall of Famers making the great blocks. And when Kramer pulls around the side, in a sense, he kind of brush blocks by Galen Fisk, and then he sets his sight and makes the block on Waller Beach and just knocks him towards the sideline, and there's this alley to run through, and Mr. Horning has been there before. He might just be able to dash those 13 yards into the end zone. So 90 painful yards against that Cleveland defense. And this is Green Bay at its peak. So if you don't mind, I would like to go back briefly to the low point in the season.
Yeah.
On October the 31st, Green Bay goes to Wrigley Field, and the Bears beat them 31-10. The Bears, the second half of 65, are in the race. They are masterful. And, of course, they have the defensive rookie of the year and an offensive kid by the name of Sayers, and he is just, when he gets the ball, he can find the end zone. So, okay, Green Bay finally loses a game. The next week, they are playing the Lions. I have just a little bit of footage from a Detroit Lion highlight film. I think that Vince destroyed the film of this game. Bart Starr is sacked 11 times for over 100 yards in this. The Lions never backed down from the Packers. They were not afraid of them. They were not intimidated. 11 times Bart Starr is sacked. But even more incredible, how about 9 times in the second half alone? There are sequences where Starr gets sacked, throws it incomplete, and then gets sacked again. And that offensive line for Green Bay, there's no Thurston. There's no Kramer at the guard. It's makeshift. And this is the low point. And Baltimore is in first place.
Yeah.
Green Bay now has to fight back to get back in the race.
Yeah.
And I think that at this point, Lombardi knows. He goes, if we can just weather this storm until I get all my guys back healthy, we have a chance. And then, of course, they do it. So back to that drive.
Yeah.
What a difference after allowing 11 sacks in midseason in a game to driving 90 yards for a touchdown. Vince had to be standing on the sideline, being the good Catholic boy he is, just thinking,
Absolutely. What strikes me about Forrest Gregg is that when Kramer pulls to the left, Gregg isn't really with them, though. Basically, what he does is he brushes past, Wigan, and basically he's paralleling Kramer in the Browns' defensive backfield, and as Kramer is driving south, Gregg makes his block by going north. I mean, it's an incredible reversal and all that, because I've never seen a sweep like that before where you're doing a parallel like that. I mean, when you look at it on film, it's absolutely stunning to behold. It's an incredible tinkering by Lombardi in my view. But again, it reveals Lombardi's great coaching genius in my view. Don't you agree?
Yes, and of course the other part is we don't know how much of an adjustment that is by Forrest Gregg, where he saw that and he goes, there's an alley here for me to go down the field and make this block.
Yeah.
And of course he has the athleticism, and he was a rookie in 56. This is 1965.
Yeah.
And he still has the running skills to get down the field. I mean, those Packer offensive linemen, they knew their jobs and they could sure do them.
Yeah, I just like to tell the audience, whenever you see a documentary about Vince Lombardi's Packers and they show an example of the power sweep, you'll see, Hornig and Kramer, with muddy uniforms running to the left, and they run into the end zone, on a muddy field. That's the play that we're talking about right here and then, because Steve Sable, using end zone cameras, caught the footage magnificently, and that's one of his favorite moments. When we're talking about Lombardi's Packers, he always uses that clip to illustrate the power of the Green Bay power sweep. Okay? Yeah. Oh, wow. Okay. Now, in the third quarter, Green Bay special teams make a big play involving Henry Jordan. Please describe it to our audience, Coach.
Well, after the Horning touchdown, the Cleveland Browns know how to win. I mean, these are the defending champions. They know what they're doing. And they can move the ball. So Chandler kicks off, and Walter the Flea Roberts, 33-yard return. So first play, Ryan runs for 8, and there's a kind of a shaky officiating call, but it doesn't matter. They call a face mask penalty on Leroy Caffey, and for 15 yards. So how about a 23-yard gain on the first play for the Browns?
Wow.
Then they give the ball to Jim Brown. It's time to give the ball to the man. Jim Brown gains 8, running to the right. Then Jim Brown gains 3, running to the left. First down. 1st and 10, Ryan throws to Collins on a short route for 7. So they have 2nd and 3 on the Green Bay 28, and Ryan throws for Brown, incomplete. Then Ryan loses 2. I think he had a problem with the ball. So now it's 4th and 5 on the Green Bay 30. Okay, we can make the score 20-15 and make it a one-score game. Groza lines up to kick the field goal, and Henry Jordan just absolutely quick knifes through and gets that big paw up there and blocks the field goal attempt.
Wow. Yep. Incredible. Incredible. In fact, Cleveland special teams had a very bad day because earlier in the game, one of the reasons why the Browns only had 12 points is on an extra point attempt, there was a bad snap. And I remember seeing that Groza, big and lumbering, had to try to run the ball himself, and he was stopped short there. So it wasn't a good day for Cleveland special teams. Would you agree, Coach?
Yes, other than the fact their return men did okay. Not great, but they did okay. Yeah, it's not a banner day for the Cleveland Browns in many facets of the game. And like I say, you just called it. So Henry Jordan, again, being a former Brown, it's almost painful.
Yeah. Now, Jim Brown only got 50 yards rushing the entire game. Besides Nitschke, who were the other key players in containing Jim Brown? I mean, what are you seeing with the films? How are they doing the containing there? Because he's not making any real big plays when you think about it. I mean, that drop, that pass in the end zone, that was probably his closest moment to making a big play. But how are they doing the containing of Jim Brown?
Well, it's all on the focus of him by all of the Packers. They are very aware, and it's not the Warfield and Collins can't make a play, because they sure can. But everything hinges on number 32. So it's gap control. Okay. And they control their gaps. And I need to interject this. There are times when I'm watching the film, the Cleveland defense is so concerned about the inside running game that you see both Cleveland defensive tackles in the A-gaps, jamming the A-gaps. So the Green Bay linemen just mash them into this pile in the middle and then run outside of it off tackle and then cut back.
Wow.
And I had mentioned just a brief minute ago that Jim Brown had carried for 3 yards on 2nd and 2 on the Green Bay 38 in the third quarter. That's the last time he carries the ball.
Jeez. Talk about taking out your big gun.
Yeah, I mean, and you can imagine it's not that he's frustrated as much as it's, how can I get the ball if I'm watching Green Bay, just control the game?
Yeah.
And, of course, let's go again. After Jordan blocks the field goal, the ball is on the Green Bay 20. When they're done, the ball is on the Cleveland 21. We go from late in the third quarter into the fourth quarter. It is approximately, I can't give you the exact amount, but it's over a 7-minute drive.
Yep.
By Green Bay.
Yeah.
Taylor for one, and then complete. Dale catches the ball. Taylor, to Dowler. Taylor. I mean, and then Horning keeps 1 yard, and then 4th and 4 on the Cleveland 21, and Chandler puts the final points. They're ahead 20-12. Now it's 23-12.
Yep. I mean, Coach, put it this way: ball control offense is often the best defense in pro football, isn't it, Coach?
Absolutely. Well, I mean, my gosh, that would still work today.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If you don't want the other team to have the ball, just you keep it yourself and run it.
Yeah.
And again, I'll give a 15-second story in this. When I was an assistant coach at Riverside City College, and we ran an offense known as the Beer, and we were prolific at running the ball, nothing was better for our defensive linemen than to be standing on the sideline in the fourth quarter, watching the defensive front seven of the other team out of gas, panting and tired, as we, with the lead, would drive the ball 6 and 7 minutes down the field, eating up clock, gaining yards with the lead.
Yep.
How can the other team come back?
Yeah.
And then they're panicked because there isn't time. So I've been a part of teams that actually could and did run the ball effectively.
Yeah.
And that's what Green Bay is doing in this game.
Yeah. I mean, that's how Dallas won Super Bowl VI. That's how Miami won Super Bowl 7 and 8. That's how the Giants won Super Bowl 25 against the Buffalo Bills. Just total time of possession. Yeah. We're coming near the end, Coach. 2 more questions. In your opinion, who was the unsung hero for the Green Bay Packers in the 1965 NFL Championship game?
As many greats as they have, and of course, in this entire conversation, I praise so many, it's Bob Jeter. He comes on the field, and it's not that he isn't a terrific athlete. He is filling in for Doug Hart. He plays the run, he's got to cover Paul Warfield, and he does a masterful job. So he is the unsung hero for Green Bay, and he's never mentioned.
Okay, let's sum it all up. You give me your final thoughts about the 1965 NFL Championship game, and then I'll give mine. Okay, you go, Coach.
Well, the silver trophy is named after Lombardi, and even though I'm going to be buried in navy blue and burnt orange as a Bear fan, I have no problem with that.
Yeah,
the man is truly one of the handful of truly gifted, great leaders and coaches, but. Let's go with what would have happened if Cleveland would have won this game.
Ooh.
Is it possible that it would be called the Blanton Collier Trophy?
Wow. Indeed.
Because he would have won back-to-back, and that would have had Lombardi 3 consecutive years not winning a championship.
Yeah. A hinge of fate when you think about it. For me... I think it's a pity no one has ever written a truly definitive account of this game, because literally it was the last NFL championship game, because the following season is the merger with the NFL and the AFL with the creation of Super Bowl One, which this time next year we will be discussing, very much so, Coach. We're going to be discussing that. But it's literally the end of an era. It's the end of the pre-Super Bowl era. You have the greatest team of the 1960s, the Green Bay Packers, versus what was the greatest team of the 1950s, the Cleveland Browns. You've got so much history there. It's played at Lambeau Field, which you have to consider Lambeau Field as one of pro football's most hallowed ground, in my view. You've got Vince Lombardi. This was the beginning of his championship trilogy, his 3 consecutive NFL titles there. You have so many Hall of Famers on both teams playing against each other. You have this great collection of talent there. And also, the fact that it was played in these muddy conditions. In the book Instant Replay, Jerry Kramer said, there's a photo of the 65 NFL championship game, and I love what Jerry Kramer said. He said, to look at us, you knew we had just played a football game, and there's Hornig, Kramer, and Thurston walking off the field completely bathed in mud, and you knew this was trench warfare at its utmost. I mean, because you don't see that type of football anymore. 2 great ground teams going at each other in the trenches there. An ultimate war of attrition with Green Bay winning and all that. There is so much metaphor, so much historical allusion there. It's a pity no one really did a truly in-depth examination. And my other favorite of this game is the Sports Illustrated photographs in that article by Tex Moll you were talking about at the very beginning there. Those photographs of the action, it's just astounding. I mean, Oliver Stone in his book Any Given Sunday actually used some of those photographs from the 65 NFL championship game when they were doing, they were talking voiceovers about the history of the game. They used some of those moments there, and I thought that was very appropriate. How do you feel about that, Coach?
Absolutely. One of the outstanding photos from that Tex Moll article, and again, what a neat title, A Cool Masterpiece.
Yeah.
There's it shows Jim Brown with the ball, and it shows him being gang tackled.
Yeah.
And you can see the Packers coming in there. Jordan's at the bottom, and then you see Kostelnik getting a piece of him. Then you see Willie Davis flying over there. You see Jeter reaching around, and you see Caffey. So in other words, you have 5 Packers grabbing Jim Brown.
Yeah.
And the photo is taken from ground level, from the side, which just captures what you're talking about so well, Matthew, that, you know what I mean, this is the iconic aspect of 1960s pro football.
Yeah. Yeah, you'll never see this again. I mean, now today's playing fields are so immaculately kept. You just don't see those old mud baths like you see in the 50, 60, 70 years ago. You just don't see that anymore. And I kind of miss that. Guys really getting their uniforms dirty because all this new turf and all that. It's almost too perfect in a way. You kind of miss that.
The only time I can actually bring that a little later in the decade is if you go to the 69 season and you watch footage of Thanksgiving where the Vikings go to Detroit to play the Lions, and they're both, and of course the Vikings are a powerhouse that year, and they're playing in the snow. There is some great footage from that. And then the Western Conference Championship game between the Rams and the Vikings is just one. I mean, it is frigid. At the Met, and they are pounding on each other. And you watch the footage, and you see some of the sideline shots taken from above. These are days to be outside. I mean, the Vikings, God bless them, they play indoors now.
Yeah. But that's one reason why they've never been back to the Super Bowl. I think when they moved indoors, I think it took away the mystique, those old days at Metropolitan Stadium where the opposing teams weren't just battling the Vikings, they were battling the elements, just like Green Bay's Lambeau Field and all that. I think that took away from the Vikings, in my opinion. Coach, I want to thank you so much. I can't wait for next year because, Coach, I want to ask you a proposition. Next September will be the 60th anniversary when George Allen took over the Los Angeles Rams, and I know our mutual love for the late George Allen. I'd love to do an episode with you where we just discuss his first season with the Rams. Just how did he alter the team? How did he make them winners again? Would you love to do that, Coach?
Oh my gosh, yes. Since he's my coaching guru.
Yep.
And most people that know me, yes, I can explain exactly.
Yeah. We'll do that in September.
How he got to what he did.
Yeah.
And when he got hired, and of course, so much of this is perspective, and again, I'll be as brief as possible. In 66, I'm 15 years old playing high school football. And I grew up in Chicago watching George Allen lead that Bear defense to a championship.
Yep.
And I turned to some of my teammates. They don't know who George Allen is. And I go, you wait and see. The Rams will finally become winners. And
Yep.
he does it his first year.
Yeah.
So, yes, sir, we can sure detail how he did it and what the change in culture was.
Yep.
From the perspective of his daughter, who's a good friend of mine, Jennifer.
Yep.
From the perspective of Deacon Jones and a handful of other men that I've talked to and what I've researched over the years.
And, of course, this time next year, we will discuss the 1966 NFL Championship game, the first time Tom Landry met Vince Lombardi in the postseason. What an immortal matchup that was.
Well, for me, that game, I enjoy that game more than the Ice Bowl. I know the Ice Bowl is iconic for all the right reasons. But that 66 title game was amazing. And again, from a coach's point of view, there is some strategy in that game that Coach Bankston finally met his match.
Wow.
In that game. Tom Landry had an offensive game plan that could rival anyone.
Okay. Well, this time next year, we're gonna really have a lot of fun. And Coach, I want to wish you and your family a very happy and safe New Year.
Thank you, Matthew. Right back at you.
God bless and keep you always, Coach.
Thanks.
Bye-bye. And that, ladies and gentlemen, concludes the end of our season, my sixth season as a podcaster. Next week's show, we'll be discussing Super Bowl F between the 1965 Green Bay Packers and the 1965 Buffalo Bills. Happy New Year. God bless you all. Be safe. Bye-bye.